I was like the 5-year-old kid who, when the whole team would like run up to try to go score, I was just like playing with the grass. I hated soccer.
Arguably the worst week and a half I've seen out of like just a luck perspective.
Yeah.
All three long shot futures made it to the championship game and not one took it home.
He's hitting over 300. He's striking out 19%.
Yeah, but he doesn't generate eyeballs, the Bundo. That's the difference.
But he does.
Riveting stuff.
You know what? Do you know what Stuff Plus is, Tim?
Welcome to Gamblin Ramblin, a weekly show where we react and rant about the weekend in sports betting. I'm Tim Kalinowski, joined by Charlie DiSturco. You can follow us both on the Action app, Action YouTube channel, Action Network HQ on TikTok and Twitter. Charlie, we got a special guest. He likes to talk baseball with you. Anthony DeBundo, also big soccer guy. Anthony, great to have you. And so USA won something last week. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, the United States had a really turbulent week in soccer off the pitch and a very successful one on the pitch. It was amazing. Two dominant victories against our two biggest rivals in North America, Mexico on Thursday, Canada on Sunday. Neither match was ever really in doubt. And yet, all of U.S. men's national team Twitter, which is probably the most toxic Twitter in all of sports, I would take that for sure. They are pissed because we rehired Gregg Berhalter as our manager. He was the manager for the last World Cup cycle. He got us to the World Cup, got us out of the group stage, was well liked by 95% of that locker room. And yet, everybody on Twitter has their opinions that he was the worst manager that's ever lived, and that it was a crime that he came back to the post, and he will be resuming as control and manager of the United States team until the next World Cup and through this next cycle, which is the most important 4 years or 3 years now in the history of U.S. soccer, given how much talent we have, the most we've ever had.
Do you think that the obviously the Mexico game started like multiple fights on the pitch, and it was arguably like the most entertaining soccer game that I've like had to watch because of the fact that A, obviously USA won, but B, there's like actual emotion and stuff, and typically in a soccer game there's not that. I mean, I just saw all the clips on TikTok, but I would like you to expand onto like why this is happening, because I'm just like that guy who turns on social media and sees this thing happen.
So the region that the United States, Mexico, and Canada play in with, the Panamas, Costa Ricas, it's called CONCACAF, and it's Confederation of Central America, Caribbean, North America, and it's notorious for bad refereeing, for really dangerous slide tackling and kind of like going after the best players on each of the teams. It's notorious for terrible field conditions. Anytime the United States has to go on the road, these teams intentionally make their fields worse to try to muddy the game up because they know that they're at a talent disadvantage. And this happens for Mexico and Canada too when they go to, say, Jamaica or Honduras or El Salvador, Trinidad and Tobago, famous, U.S. loss there. So CONCACAF has this reputation for chaos. Anytime the U.S. is on the road in qualifying, anytime they're playing a big match against one of their rivals, something always happens. There's never just like your traditional soccer match happens, everybody goes home. The Mexican fans are notorious. They have this homophobic slur that they use in Spanish that has gotten them banned from matches, and they were saying it again at the end of the match after they got their butts kicked in the last one. The U.S. played a match against Honduras last year, where one of the U.S. players was entirely covered in mud because the pitch conditions were so bad after he got slide tackled. So it's called CONCACAFing, when a referee totally loses control of the game because he's not enforcing the right fouls or letting players murder each other. And that's pretty much what happened in the second half of the Mexico game. Mexico's getting their butts kicked and they're not happy about it. And so they start going after some players, and then the U.S. players respond, and it becomes just this like insane brouhaha where the referee has no idea what's going on, and as a result, you get fights and crowd involvement and everything. And so it's not a surprise. USA Canada was much more subdued, but it certainly can boil over rather quickly in CONCACAF, and that's the tradition with our matches against our neighbors.
The U.S. should just have their matches at FedEx Field, it sounds like, because It's basically the same.
Well,
conditions.
we've done some crazy stuff too. I mean, we made the Costa Ricans come play in Denver in the snow.
Oh, that's awesome.
During
I think
qualifying, and they are still complaining about it. This was in the 2010 cycle, I think it was, that they had to come to the snow, and they're still mad about it. And then we made Honduras play in Minnesota in January during qualifying, and I believe the game time temperature was like 7 degrees or something. So we've done our fair share of gamesmanship with regards to kind of picking locations to make these more tropical teams come north and play us in conditions maybe we're a little more used to. We also played Canada, not that they can really control it, but we played Canada, I think it was sub-zero during qualifying. So we've had our fair share of advantages ourselves that we pulled.
Yeah, so you're saying that the CONCACAF, if someone wants to get into soccer, then they should be watching the CONCACAF, because that seems more entertaining and more storylines than like a normal EPL Sunday match where I'm sitting watching a 1-0 game and me losing in like heartbreaking fashion.
Yeah, you kind of have to really dive into EPL to kind of understand the nuance of it and the rivalries and why the fans are the way they are, and kind of you have to be willing to grind for a year, because like soccer starts August 12th in England and the season goes until the end of May. So you're really in it for the long haul. And so in the US matches, they tend to be in the summer. It's of course much easier viewing for us because the times tend to be more conducive to watching sports. But also, it's the U.S. men's national team. You're rooting for your country, and, it's not that often you get to root for like an American national team in a big sporting event. So we're playing against Mexico. We're playing against Canada. We'll go on the road in qualifying in a couple of years. Next summer is the Copa America, which is not official yet, but it looks like we're going to host it. So that means that Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Chile, Peru, Paraguay, all the South American teams are going to be playing a major tournament in the United States. We're probably the third best team, maybe fourth, going into that tournament. So it's going to be a real test potentially next summer. And of course, with Brazil and Argentina coming, that means Messi, Neymar, all those top guys in the World Cup champions. And, what the markets say is the best team in the world in Brazil coming to the United States to play in high profile matches.
That's sick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, Messi's also gonna be in the U.S. anyway because he's going to.
That is true.
Miami. But I will say, you bet baseball, right? And you also bet soccer. So those are like probably two of the worst sports to watch from like a fan perspective. I like, why did you get into it? How did you get into it? Why do you subject yourself to 1-0 games both in soccer and baseball for like an hour and a half plus?
Yeah, soccer for me was a sport that I hated playing. People always ask me, they just assume that I played soccer because I'm so into it. But I was like the 5-year-old kid who, when the whole team would like run up to try to go score, I was just like playing with the grass. I hated soccer. I never liked it. My parents didn't like it, so they were very happy when I was like, I'm out and I don't want to do soccer anymore. 5-year-old, 6-year-old, I played baseball instead. But soccer has really grown on me. I credit FIFA to an extent, the World Cup, just like the energy back in 2010, 2011, 2012. I started watching the Prem and kind of getting into it, and it's become so much more accessible in the United States. We have an ability to watch every Prem match if you subscribe to Peacock and then, with NBC's rights. That's not even true of people in Britain. Like, you cannot watch every English Premier League match if you live in the UK. They have blackout restrictions and kind of rights change and stuff like that. So it's actually harder to watch the Prem in England than it is here, which is pretty remarkable. And it's really driven, I think, a lot of success for the league in the United States. And it's fun because it's early in the morning. I
was shocked.
First
off, though, I was shocked. I was just in England in May for a Tottenham match, and I was shocked about the whole TV thing. Like, all my buddies were like, we're trying to treat it like, like an NFL Sunday. They want to bet everything, watch everything, from a pub or whatever. And they're sitting there and we're like, oh, they can't get this match on. They can't get this. And then like some of these pubs are like Sky Sports. I thought it was like ESPN. Like everyone just got Sky Sports. Not true. It's a big package you pay for. Some pubs are like, we're not paying for that. Go to a place who pays for it. We were like, wait a minute. We get all this access in America, and then the TV rights are totally different there. They do it like old school. It's probably like our parents remember like watching baseball and football with like blackouts. Like people used to not be able to watch the Patriots here because they, black you out. They want you to go to the match. So I was fucking floored by that.
Yeah, so the main kickoff time in England is 3 o'clock on Saturdays, 3 o'clock Britain time, PM. So 10 a.m. in the East Coast. And if you go to a pub, they will not be showing a match. It's the equivalent of like Scott Hansen and like two other guys sitting at a desk, and you see the rolling ticker of the scores, and then they announce Joe Burrow has thrown a 10-yard touchdown to Jamar Chase. The Bengals lead 7-0. And they don't actually show the live action. You don't actually see it. You just see the goal. And then maybe like 15 minutes later, they'll cut in and say, here's the touchdown that Burrow threw to Chase. Here's the goal that Jamie Vardy scored for Leicester. So you don't actually get to see it because they want to encourage fans to go to matches, right? Not just the Prem, but the lower leagues will all play on those Saturday afternoons. Championship, second division, third division, Liga 1 and 2. And they want to encourage you to go support your local. And so they kind of do that by saying, hey, we're not going to show them on TV. You need to go to the match. Now, they do show like the early morning kick at noon every day, or on Saturday. That will be on TV. The main 5:30 kick on Saturday. The Sunday matches will generally standalones will be on. They have Monday Night Football there too, which is the 8 p.m. kick on Monday nights. So they do have standalones, but in terms of like the main, like you're sitting down at 1 p.m. on Sunday for Red Zone channel, it's like the Red Zone channel, but you can't actually watch the plays or the matches.
The Red Zone, like when you go to NFL Network, they do
that's
like
what I was thinking.
Right? They do like the radio or something, right?
Yes.
You just like you like it, that was like
NFL
poor people Red Zone.
When you have like one game on at 1 o'clock, like the Jets are not playing, and it's just like a random game that you don't care about. You go to like NFL Network, and it's just like highlights from 15 minutes ago, or like the scoreboard's up, but you just see them moving down the field. But it's essentially like you pulling up your phone and watching like ESPN Fantasy, and you're just like you're like watching the play-by-play, rooting that hopefully your team gets in or the guy gets on. That's absurd. I don't understand blackouts. That's just like a whole topic for a different day. Like I don't understand why we can't watch the Mets locally if I'm a cable cutter, which I am. But I will say, and not to, I mean, I want to move to baseball soon enough, but Devonta, we have to address the unfortunate week and a half that you had. Arguably the worst week and a half I've seen out of like just a luck perspective. You had 3 futures. Yeah. All 3 long shot futures made it to the championship game, and not one took it home.
Yeah. So back in January, we do the Wonder Goal podcast with Michael Leboff, BJ Cunningham. We all picked kind of like, okay, we have the brackets set for the 3 main European competitions. We talk about them throughout the fall and the spring. So let's all kind of come to a consensus on like who we're backing as like a long shot. And so in January, we all said Roma to win the Europa League at 23-1. They were like the 6th favorite. And then in the Champions League, they took Leipzig, who got trounced, but I took Inter at 34-1. They got a really favorable draw to the point where they were favored in all 3 matches to get to the final, and then got there. And then in the Europa Conference League, which is the second year of this new competition they just invented last year, they were plus 850. They were the 3rd favorite, I think, or 2nd favorite. So those were the 3 teams, all Italian, all made it to the final in dramatic fashion. I mean, Roma scored a late goal to get into the semis in like almost stoppage time to advance. Fiorentina was losing in their semifinal. They came back to win. Inter, like I said, had the favorable draw. So they all get to the final. And I'm like, well, okay, Roma's a favorite, small favorite. Fiorentina's a coin flip. Inter's a big underdog. I got to get at least one of these. Surely. So Roma goes to pens. They were the better team most of the match. They go to pens. They lose. They took some of the worst penalties I've ever seen. I knew they had no chance.
They were also up 1-0.
They were up 1-0. Yeah. Fiorentina was totally dominating their match. They give away a really dumb handball penalty. They go down 1-0. So I'm like, okay, this is over. They tie it up only to lose in stoppage time to West Ham on a stoppage time breakaway. So they lose. And I'm like, okay, well now surely like Inter's my last ticket. I know they don't really have a chance against Man City, best team in the world. And Inter outplayed City for large stretches of that match. City looked dead. Inter had like 2-3 chances. Lukaku's missing headers from 3 yards out. Guardiola, the manager for City, was even saying, how lucky they were that they didn't concede a goal there. And so they were plus 350 underdogs and really should have been in that match. Probably could have gone into extra time. And they lose 1-0. So in 10 days, instead of winning a lot of money, I won a small amount on a hedge on the Roma ticket, and that was it.
I think the funniest part about that whole thing is that you lost Inter because Romelu Lukaku could not score, and that was like the entire story of like him in the World Cup too. It's like every time he gets to the final third, you pay this guy who's like whatever 6'7", 8. I don't even know how tall he is.
No, that's all. He's like 6'3".
All right, whatever. He looks like he's a lot bigger than most soccer players, which he is, and he's just like a huge guy. And then all of a sudden, this guy you pay him to finish, and he can't finish. And I mean, I had both teams to score that game, and I was watching, and I was like, oh my god, like the Bundo just couldn't catch a break.
I was tailgating a concert, streaming it on my phone.
What concert?
Second half, Noah Khan, and I'm just I rewinded it like 3 times. Like, how did he miss? How did he miss? And they hit the crossbar on a header, and then he blocked his own teammate. The thing was, though, I faded Belgium at the World Cup, so all of his misses made me a lot of money at the World Cup. So net, like, you know, Lukaku and I are still on good terms, but I'm a little upset with him. I'm a little upset with him for the final, for sure.
I will say, when you said like, oh, it's, you know, getting into the Prem and whatever, the easiest way for an American sports fan to get into soccer, football, is just understanding that these guys hate their coaches and managers way more than we do. Every time someone loses, it's hashtag whoever out. I am in law. I felt I could care less about soccer, but what gets me involved is the hatred for their coaches, their managers, their ownership. It is only, you know, football fans could really understand how great it is. American football fans can understand how great it is and how much hatred they have. I think as New Yorkers, Philadelphia people, Bostonians, we can all appreciate that.
I mean, there's a team in England. They're pretty big. They're generally like a yo-yo club. So they're between 15 and 25, biggest team. So sometimes they're in the Premier League. Sometimes they get relegated. They're currently in the 2nd division. Watford, based just outside of London. Elton John owns a part of the team. And they have had 19 managers in 11 years. I mean, think about that.
You said 19 and 11?
19 managers in 11 years. They lose 4 in a row, new manager. They go on a big winning run. They get promoted. Guy has a slow start to the season, new manager. It's just insane. And
that's awesome.
That's extreme. But like, I mean, Tottenham, the team I root for, one of the biggest 6 or 7 teams in England, they've now had 5 managers in 4 years. Between
Tortoise Club. It's a Tortoise Club.
Yeah. Pochettino, and then Ryan Mason was in charge. Nuno Espirito Santo, Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte. Now they just hired an Australian, Ange Postecoglou. So that's how many. I didn't even know they just said, but it's like 5 or 6 managers in 5 years.
That's awesome. I feel like it's I feel like that has to make for good radio or like TV. Just like every bad loss, it's just like Man City drops a game to like a random bottom team, and they're like, get rid of them. I don't care you won the Champions League last year. We need to address the real problem.
That's the case. I mean, Spurs had their best run ever, cup run. They had finished top 4 straight years. They made it to the final of the Champions League, lost to Liverpool. They had a slow start to the season, like the first 10 games. They fired Pochettino, who'd been there for 5 years, because he had a bad start to the season and he lost the locker room. Fired.
Man, they ain't real ones.
My friends are like, dude, just admire, like, you know, Harry Kane's, you know, his balls, all class this. I'm like, dude, tell me more about the fucking fire the coach every 5 minutes.
That's awesome. See, that would be so funny if there was an American sports team that just like rotated through managers. Like it was like, all right, 1 month bad. All right. Like the Mets right now, get rid of Buck. Then they bring in someone else. They go on like a 20-game win streak. They're like, all right, great. They lose 10 in a row. It's like, all right, get the next one. And just
Aaron Boone would have been fired 700 times if they were in England.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, he would have been fired like 3 years ago, but yet he still has a job somehow, Mr. Karen Boone. Well, speaking of baseball and speaking of, you know, Elton John and Rocket Man, the Rocket Man himself, Elly De La Cruz, is one of the best products to watch on the field right now, and you hate him. So let's talk about how you always like to put good things to shame, DeMundo. Why do you hate Elly?
Well, I think as bettors, like we're naturally just kind of contrarian. I think there's just like an element in people.
Yeah, but there's a level of Debbie Downing that you
yes.
do. Yes.
Well, you know, like when a guy is really bad and everybody wants to bet against him, that's usually when I'm like, well, you know, the market probably overreacted. Let's bet on him, and vice versa. I mean, when a guy hits the kind of the top of the market. Look, Elly De La Cruz's tools are incredible. The power and the speed combination, there's a reason he's a top prospect in baseball. But when I started seeing like he's, this to, over 1.5 bases and everybody's betting over, 99% of people are betting overs and saying how he's the best prospect. They're comparing him to Wembanyama. They're comparing him, saying he's going to win Rookie of the Year when he came up in June. Well, let's look at the numbers. Right. So he's played a small sample, but, enough of a sample now we can kind of get a feel for what he has been as a player. And
if you say anything with a plus on it, any stat with the plus, I'm going to go out of my mind.
Well, his WRC plus, which is weighted runs created. So it's kind of like a baseline compared to league average as a hitter. They park adjust it. It's a 105. So he's been 5% better than a league average hitter in his first 12 major league games, 54 plate appearances. He has 1 home run, but he struck out in 33% of his, 1/3 of his at-bats have ended in a strikeout. That puts him in the bottom 3 or 4% of the league. And he's, slugging .417. So I think there's still limits to him because in this rookie season alone, he's 21 years old or about to be 21. He's in his age 21 year. And the projections for him for the rest of the season all have him as a below average hitter for the rest of the year. Now,
that's fun.
That doesn't mean he's not going to hit some homers and steal a bunch of bases, because he will do that. But on a plate-to-plate appearance thing, it's just like we need to calm down and say that, like, in 2 to 3 years, yes, Elly could be one of the best players in baseball. But when he's striking out over 30% of his at-bats, he's just not going to be that consistent good.
He could strike out 30% of the time, and you could bet against him under a half a total base, and he'll still get that infield single. So
and that's another thing. His batting average on balls in play, Tim.
BABIP.
His BABIP is 414.
Not TH, Tim.
So if that lowers, and look, he's going to beat most BABIP. Like, he's going to be a much above average BABIP guy because of his speed is ridiculous and because his power is ridiculous. He hits the ball hard, but he's not going to have a 414 BABIP. You could probably project him for like a 350, 340 BABIP. That would put him for the rest of the season. His projected batting average is 247 with a 300 on base and a 420 slug. That's who do you think that's comparable to? I'm going to pull up the projection on like who that's comparable to as a hitter for the rest of the season. The WRC plus, 88 WRC plus for the rest of the season. That would put him in line with
David Peralta.
I bet you Peralta's better. Okay, I'm pulling it up. 88 WRC plus, James Outman, Josh Lowe, Derek Hall, Ryan Noda, Mark Vientos, Ezekiel Tovar, Brandon Marsh, Luke Raley.
I have a question.
Aaron Hicks. That's the comparable people.
Hicks is good.
He's going to steal more. He's going to hit more homers. He's going to have some steals. He's going to make some highlight plays. But like the game to game, like what I care about as a bettor, he's not going to be that dominant of a hitter for this lineup.
I have a question. I agree with you. This is like the great gambler's conundrum. We are naturally contrarian, but what line though? I'm the same way. But what's the line between I'm always going to be contrarian, I'm naturally contrarian, and I also want to hop in and like there's also no better feeling of riding one player or one team and like like them being like your gambling darling. You know what I mean? Like I want him to be my gambling darling and the Reds to be my gambling darling, but it makes it so you can't really have a gambling darling if you have to eventually sell off once the market overreacts.
I think you can kind of ride it. What about Corbin Carroll? Did we just forget about him? Like, he's 5'10".
He plays in Arizona. Who cares?
Elly plays in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and Cincinnati's Cincinnati's won 9 in a row. They're the best team in baseball.
Arizona's first place in like the best division. They're beating the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Padres, who were like the Dodgers and the Padres were 2 of the 5 best teams in the league coming into the year. The Diamondbacks are fascinating to me. And guess what? Corbin Carroll is second in MVP voting. He's going to win the Rookie of the Year. Second in MVP odds, rather. He's going to win Rookie of the Year. His WRC plus 161. He's hitting over 300. He's striking out 19%.
Yeah, but he doesn't generate eyeballs, the Bundo. That's the difference.
But he does. He's
the only eyeballs that he generates are him forgetting how many outs there were in a baseball game and the Phillies scoring a run because of it. And that's the only highlight I've seen of him in the past 2 weeks.
He homered last night. It was awesome.
I know he homers the ball, but there's a difference between like a guy like Elly, who's like this freak athlete who comes up and is electric and everyone wants to ride him, and then this guy Corbin Carroll. That's like for like, not from a gambling perspective. This is like from a pure baseball viewership perspective. No one wants to go watch like the D-backs. No one wants to go watch like this little guy who's like clubbing the ball.
I think it's sick that there's a guy who's 5'10", 165 pounds, who's going to hit 30 plus homers and potentially, I mean, he could win the MVP as a rookie. He's second in WAR. I don't think he will.
Yeah, I know. My friend told me to take him at 100-1 like 3 weeks ago, and now he's the second favorite, and I missed it, and I'm pissed.
Same, and he's gonna have 30 homers and potentially like 40 steals. Like he's putting up ridiculous numbers on a very, very good team, and nobody's talking about him because Elly's awesome. Look, Elly's 6'5". The picture of him with Altuve, like that's amazing. I think he's gonna be awesome in the long term, and even in the medium term. But like right now, the Reds have other prospects who are outplaying him too. Matt McClain's been better. Spencer Steer's been better. Like they have all of these guys. Their pitching's in trouble now because Green's hurt, but like their lineup is full of guys. They're fun. Don't get me wrong. But as a bettor, like why not ride the D-backs? I have a ticket on them to make the playoffs.
I actually think that's fair. Because my favorite part of gambling is contrarian, and then you can continue to ride them because the market's still not catching up. So I guess, is that our D-backs? Is that Carroll? Is that where we should be living?
It might be. Honestly, that lineup has mashed their top 5-6 lineup. Nobody thought that coming into the year. Not one projection. Not anybody. Even somebody who was high on them. I was high on them coming into the year. I thought they'd be like a 500 team, not like the second best record in the National League. So,
but do we think that inevitably comes down to earth? Like, do we think that the D-backs like fall like the Pirates have just like absolutely shattered after their hot start, or the Cubs? And, like,
I think they're more real than the Pirates, but
I can't stop betting the Pirates.
You gotta stop. They just called up their top catching prospect, but he's playing the outfield.
Yeah, what? So, okay, I saw that, by the way. I saw that the Pirates have the worst like catcher across the board of all teams. Pirates have the worst production out of the catcher position. They called up their first overall or first round pick? First overall pick, and they slot him in right field in the first game of the year. They lose 8-0. Like,
I think they're worried about his defense. His pitch framing's bad, and they have Andy Rodriguez, who's probably better.
Yeah, but how are we sending out Austin Hedges
every day?
Every day. He might be the worst catcher I've watched, aside from like Tomas Nido or like Austin Barnes. And like they have at least like defensive. I mean, they're all defensive catchers, but like you call up this number one prospect and then you slot him in right field, and like you're giving a guy like Palacios, who's playing fine, not a chance to hit, and then you're letting Austin Hedges take 3 to 4 at bats.
Yeah, I think Andy ultimately will be the catcher, but it is interesting that he's already off catcher when he was drafted first overall as a catcher in 2020. So it's strange, but yeah, I mean, look, the Reds are fun. I'm not rooting against the Reds. I love Joey Votto, one of my favorite players of the last entire generation. I think everybody loves Joey Votto. I have a ticket with. I mean, I also have a Reds ticket. I'm just like now. I'm like, all right, the hype on Elly has gotten crazy.
I will say before we move on from the Reds, I'll let Tim go real quick after this. But Joey Votto's first game back, homer and go ahead single.
Why didn't we bet that? That's the kind of thing you bet.
Right. That's the thing is like it's like I almost was like I was expecting him to struggle, and then all of a sudden he comes in, hits a homer, gets the go ahead single, they end up winning because they had incredible stuff from the Reds. But go ahead, Tim.
I would do unspeakable things for Joey Votto to be a Red Sox. What an awesome guy to root for.
Cassis is good. Oh, I thought you meant like you just like the person. I was gonna say Cassis is coming around.
Joey Votto is so.
But
fun.
Why does
Boston hate the Red Sox so much?
Because they all hate ownership. In what Boston? This defines the whole Fenway group. In what world do you end an 86-year curse? You win 3-4 championships since then, and you are still hated. You have to be so out of touch, so unlikable as an ownership group for that to happen. And that's like, I feel like Fenway Group across the board, people kind of can't stand them. And it's the same way with Liverpool now.
There's Liverpool's done a lot of winning, so they built up a lot of goodwill in the last few years with that.
But I mean, he tried to start the Super League. Like he's still like still don't. He's not universally loved, even though he brings he brings winning when he comes in. Like he immediately wins, which is like again kind of crazy to think about.
I mean, most soccer teams, they hate their managers, they hate their ownership groups too. United wants Glazer out, they might be selling. Liverpool, like their FSG out. Arsenal hates Cranky, they want him out.
I love it. Well, that's
Tottenham hates their chairman Daniel Levy. So, unless you're owned by like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates fund, like Man City and Newcastle, you generally don't like your ownership group either. Because they're not spending enough money to get better. It's just the belief.
I want to play a quick game with you two baseball, with you two seam heads. So we've had a bunch of teams this year, which I think is exciting, kind of come out of nowhere and be better than at least a casual like me would expect. And so I'm gonna read like a couple of these division leaders, couple of these pesky teams. You tell me, jump aboard or jump off. Baltimore. Tabundo. Jump in, jump off.
Jump in. I love their pitching. Bradish is underrated. They got Grayson Rodriguez, top prospect, pitching prospect, was awful in the majors, but he was tipping pitches. He's going to figure it out. His stuff is too good, and they could trade a bat for an arm, and then they're going to be in the playoffs.
I'm going to say jump off. I think that they're probably the fourth best team in the American League East.
Wow. Okay. Minnesota. They lead the Central. Jump in, jump off.
I'm going to say, like, they're probably going to win the division, but, like, what does that even mean?
Yeah,
so I'm out on the Twins.
Yeah, you don't want to, like, jump in or jump off. It's just, like, that division is a hellhole.
I would jump off them as a team in general because of the pitching injuries. They feel like the same team as last year. The problem is this year the Guardians are probably not going to luck box the division. I mean, they could, but they're getting injured too. And I don't see either of them spending at the deadline, so I'm going to go with hold. They win the division, but they suck.
Gotcha. Texas, they lead the West.
I'm in. Donnie Ecker is the best non-manager coach in the league. What he did with the Giants, so he was the hitting coach of the Giants the year they put together that 100-plus win season when all of their hitters had career years. Now he's the bench coach and hitting coordinator for the Rangers, and they are mashing baseballs. They are having an amazing lineup season, and their biggest hole is the bullpen, which there's always a way to fix at the deadline. If Uvalde is healthy, they're going to be, I think, the division champs now because of Houston's injuries. So I'm in on the Rangers. It's just there's not a dominant team in the AL. I'd say jump off. I hate to go contrarian with the go against the bundle every time. I just think that I like the long-term success of the season of the Angels because I think that they're remaining competitive and they're going to buy at the deadline and they're going to spend heavily to keep Ohtani and want him there. So I think the Texas makes the playoffs, but I think that like the Angels are more than live to really make noise. But I don't buy the Astros, so it's like kind of like a medium,
Gotcha. The NL East, can a team other than the Braves win that division?
No, it's a wrap.
The Phillies maybe.
Don't even start with this shit.
No, I'm being honest. Look, the reality with the Braves, if you had to draw a path, the Phillies starting rotation's been the best in the league by every metric in June. Their pitchers are trending back in the right direction. Nola's velocity and Ranger's been good, and Walker's been good for now. The Braves rotation has a lot of injuries. I know. Like Strider's velocity is down now. If he hit the IL, they would be starting like 3 rookies every 5 days.
Yeah, but that's still 8. It's still they have an 8-game lead right now.
Right.
The breaks in 2 weeks. I think that they're gonna. I mean, the Marlins are not legit.
Yeah, I'm out of the Marlins, but I think they're gonna be in the mix, the Phillies, but I don't think they catch the Braves.
How about the NL Central? We have 4 teams within 3.5 games. Anyone other than who's coming out of the NL Central?
My Cardinals or my Cubs or my Reds?
No, you can't pick 3 to one. You got to pick 1.
Well, those happen to be the 3 teams that I bet on to win the division.
Yeah, so pick one. Who's winning?
St. Louis 8 games out, by the way.
Their Pythag is like they're a 500 team. I like the Cubs. I've been on the Cubs. They have finally started to turn it around again. Their rotation's getting healthy. They have the highest floor of all of the teams in this division because they just have a lot of depth and like their lineup 1 to 9 doesn't really have holes. Their rotation is like a bunch of solid guys, no dominant aces. The Brewers are flawed. The Pirates are folding. The Reds pitching is scaring me now because Green's hurt, like I said.
Yeah, but it's retroactive.
Right.
So,
But
Charlie?
I'm a little worried.
Yeah, I'd say the Reds still. I'm going to keep banging the drum. I think that from an offensive perspective, I personally think that the Reds have the best offense in the NL Central and have less holes than any other team in that division. Obviously, like DeBundo said, the pitching is the biggest concern. But, I mean, I don't know. There's just something about this team where, like, they make baseball fun again, and I think that they're going to ride the momentum and keep on winning.
Let's move on to our last division here, the NL West. The Diamondbacks currently lead. San Diego, 8.5 games out. San Diego's most interesting team to me. San Diego, hop in, jump off.
I'd say hop in. I think that this team is going to be fine. I don't think they're going to win. I wouldn't say go to like the window and bet an NL West future right now on them, but like if you want to bet them to win the NL or like the World Series, I don't think it's a bad time to buy in on them because like Zerillo's also talked about too, their offense is going to click. Like their offense is too good not to be sub 200 with runners in scoring position, and that's what you want to back in the playoffs is hot bats right now. And I think they'll be just fine with pitching.
They are the most enigmatic team for me in the whole league. I don't know what to do with them anymore because it used to be that like Soto started slow, Machado started slow, and you were like, well, Machado and Soto will be fine. You know that their track records are what they are, but they're now hitting, and the Padres are still not winning.
I mean, they're still not totally hitting.
Well, they've been better. I mean, Soto hit 2 homers last night. They still lost. So
yeah,
I'm kind of.
I have no idea what to do with them. That's like
I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't think anyone knows what to do. I think everyone's like they're gonna be. I think if you want to bet the Padres, you have to go for a home run of like to win the NL. I don't think you could take like an NL West future.
Yeah.
Like, you have to go for them to sneak into the playoffs and get hot at the right time and use Darvish, Snell, Musgrove. Because from an outsider's perspective, you look at this team, they're one of the best teams in baseball. But
they're very Phillies for me from last year. It's a lot more. The Phillies lineup is even deeper now than it was last year. The Padres lineup just has no depth though. Like that was the thing with them last year when we got into the playoffs. It was like 6 to 9 were just free outs. Grisham hit a couple homers, but like 6 to 9 in their lineup last year was just like out. They had nothing.
But that's something that's easily addressable.
I don't know that it is. They don't have any prospects. They traded them all. They traded all their prospects for Juan Soto.
Oh, Josh Hader. We're too deep into the weeds for the Padres now. We're up against it, but I want to do this quickly. Second to last thing. DeBundo, what's your favorite MLB analytical stat?
Stuff plus.
Charlie, how about you?
Analytical stat. I'd say X ERA.
Both pitching.
Wow.
Metrics.
Riveting stuff.
Do you know what stuff plus is, Tim?
It probably has to do with like stuff as in a pitcher's movement on pitches, and then the plus is probably like on balls that are strikes.
Close. Yeah, it's just like pitch velocity, shapes, and movement generating like a ultimate like processed pitching stat. Like how good is your fastball? How good is your curveball? Relative to like a league average, which was like 100. So if you have like 130 stuff plus on your fastball, that's like a dominant Spencer Strider level fastball.
Gotcha. Degenerate moment of the week. This is what we do, DeBundo. You have to go back in your week, your weekend, and the moment you just said to yourself, I'm a complete degenerate. It sounds like it might have been you at your concert.
Yeah, streaming the Champions League final while sitting on a cooler drinking a seltzer at the Noah Khan tailgate was definitely up there. We were just talking off air about the World Putting League. the mini golf, and I texted my buddies and said, I'm gonna have a golf bet for you guys, mini golf next week, and they were like, "You're kidding?" And I said, "No." Those are probably my top two.
I'm all in for sure. Charlie?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of how this weekend went. I would probably say being out on the beach and like everyone else is like drinking and like getting their like having a discussion, and I'm like a towel over the head, like looking up at lines, trying to figure out like what I'm gonna bet for that certain game. The bundle always preaches me to stop and like take a day off or like relax, but I'm like always in it.
Yeah, you are.
I was on vacation this week, so we were at a winery in Napa with my mom, and I was like checking some baseball scores, and I was like, you know what? Screw this. I need to just put my phone down, not look at it. Like, the game will happen, and I will move on, whether or not like the game goes over 9.5 runs or whatever. And it didn't. And you know what? So be it.
My degenerate moment of the week actually goes to my girlfriend. We have been heavy on the College World Series, or I have been. I love betting the College World Series, and we watched that entire series against Oregon, where Oral Roberts blew a huge lead, and then Oregon blew a huge lead, and then it went to a game 3. And for the past couple of days, now that we're in the College World Series, every day she's like, Oral Roberts played today? So she has been all in on watching just the excitement of Oral Roberts. And I've been betting Oral Roberts, plus run line, plus 3.5 I saw the other day. So Oral Roberts has been like our family's team. We've taken over. My parents are all in on Oral Roberts. They are collective degenerate moment of the week.
Oral Bob, baby.
Oral. Love me some Oral Roberts. Debundo, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you for being on the hot seat and telling us about your baseball. We are officially in the dog days. We are in the dog days. Picking up the phone and seeing only MLB is tough, but I will be at the World Putting League this weekend in Myrtle Beach as a color commentator, so that will probably be an early look at my degenerate moment of the week next week. So I'll give you guys some best bets on the World Putting League. Be sure to find Debundo on Twitter in the Action app. Debundo, give us what's your plug? What's your Twitter in Action?
Yeah, at Anthony Debundo, DABBUNDO on Twitter, and I'm in the app, same username. Sweating some baseball. We'll have Wimbledon coming up in about a month. I'll do a podcast with Gil Gross of the Tennis Channel. We'll get him in there, get some tennis bets for the championships. My favorite summer sweat. But yeah, it's really just kind of taking some vacation time and kind of winding down a little bit and getting ready for the grind of the fall once again, which NFL prep for me is in like 2 weeks, and then soccer's back in 5. So not much time to rest.
Good for you. Charlie?
What's up?
At Charlie DiSturco.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie DiSturco.
Usually
Clown.
you always say. Usually when you close the show, you do it yourself.
I know. You're at Charlie DiSturco.
Yeah, there you go. Why don't you do the normal close? All right, Tim, let's go.
Yeah, I'm at TimmyCal12 on Twitter. T Kalinowski in the app. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Sorry to our producers. You got to cut this bad boy down. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your gambling.